Hey everybody, we're going to start here about exploration now. So remember that the scientific revolution has led people to question science, and now they're kind of questioning the world, like what is around? What can I go see? There's going to be a huge factor that's going to lead to motivation, and we're going to talk about that here. But now we're looking at why exploration, why now, what happens? And this is where we start the global age, because we're going to figure out, hey, there's some other continents out there. So what are some reasons that people move? Let's think about that for a minute. So if we were in class, we would actually spend a few minutes right now talking about why people move. I have moved a lot in my life, so I'll tell you maybe some of the reasons I moved. So when I moved, when I was really little, I don't remember, we were living in a trailer, and then my parents built a house. So we moved to a house because we upgraded to a nicer place. And then my brother came along, and we kind of needed a place to put him. We moved then at the end of my second grade year because my dad got a new job. And so my dad had a new job, so we had to move. Then my dad decided to go to become a pastor and go to college. So we moved again. So for my dad's job. And then we moved again at the end. So I moved at the end of second grade, then at the end of seventh grade. Then I moved again at the end of 10th grade because, well, again, my dad got a different job and we had to move again. Then I moved. I went to college. So sometimes people are moving for money, sometimes moving for opportunity, sometimes people go for adventure. So you've heard me say that I lived overseas. For those of you maybe who haven't caught that on yet, when I was 29, I moved to Turkey, and I moved there. I lived there for 4 years, and I moved because I wanted an adventure, and it was an amazing time. So when we think about why people move, that's, adventure even still is a reason that people move today. Sometimes it's finances, and those are going to be motivating factors that we're going to see here as well. How much do you think that the Europeans knew about the world in the 1500s? Well, they did not know that North and South America were here. Actually, the Vikings would have known. We're getting ready to come up on Columbus Day, which I don't believe in celebrating because Columbus, well, we'll talk about Columbus. But I do believe in celebrating Leif Erikson Day because Leif Erikson was actually the first one to set foot on what is North America. But he found it to be so awesome that he didn't tell anybody because he didn't want people coming over here and stealing his awesome, great area. They landed in Canada and Newfoundland. And they called it Vinland because it was full of grapes and lots of great places that they could grow, which was a big problem because he came from Scandinavia. Remember that the Vikings lived in Denmark and Norway and Sweden, and there was they're too populated. They didn't have enough land to farm, so it was very attractive. So they didn't understand that. Now, I'm going to get this straight right now. Everybody with me? Christopher Columbus did not prove that the world was round. I'm going to say it again. I'm going to make myself bigger and say it again. Christopher Columbus did not prove that the world was round. One more time for those in the back who didn't hear me. Christopher Columbus did not prove that the world was round. Okay, here's why. Educated people at this time period knew that the world was round. Do you know how long they'd known since the world was round? Since the Greeks. Okay, people knew that the world was round. People did not believe that if you went and sailed, you would fall off the edge of the earth. Okay, now maybe your elementary teacher told you that, and I'm sorry that you're heartbroken right now, but my elementary teacher probably told me that too. So here's the truth is that educated people knew the world was round. Now, were there like poor people who couldn't read, who thought the world was flat? Of course there probably were, all right? But the average person, the educated person, they knew that the world was round. All right, now I'll zoom back out. So, what are some things that make traveling difficult at this time? Well, it takes a long time to go everywhere. You don't have a cell phone and you don't have GPS. Okay, and they don't even know where they're going sometimes. All right. Why do you think Europeans were interested in new lands? Well, let's think back. What did the Ottomans do? In 1453, the Ottomans conquered Constantinople, and in doing so, they controlled the Mediterranean Sea. And that made it very difficult now to cut through to the Silk Road. So people were looking for a way to bypass the Ottomans. Okay. Who are some famous explorers? So maybe you know some, so think about some you know, and then we'll see if we talk about any of them today. All right, so one of the big things that's going to make a change, scientific revolution, we've got technology, and we're getting a lot of our technology from the Arabs. So a lot of it's going to come from the Middle East, and we're going to get a little bit from China as well. It's interesting to think that the empires that we just studied, the Asian empires, they were way more advanced than Europe during the Middle Ages. And then as the Renaissance gets to happening, Europe keeps advancing. The scientific revolution happens. All these things happen. And China and the Ottomans, like, they stop. They get really worried about foreigners, and they kind of close themselves off and they stop advancing. So maps become more accurate during this time period. Cartographers, people who make maps, and so those become a big deal during this time period. We're also going to see this understanding of latitude and longitude. So interestingly enough, longitude was actually invented first, like the prime meridian. And then later on, they did latitude. So when you look at, say, a Mercator map, which has like extended Greenland, those were used for sailors. They also developed something called the astrolabe. So this is a picture here on the right. I've actually seen an astrolabe in person at a museum in Scotland, and it literally fits in your hand. Like, it's like not much bigger than that. It's like the size of like a compass, and you use longitude in order to use an astrolabe. Columbus did something called dead reckoning, which is based on the position of the sun. It's a very difficult way, actually, to navigate. I give Columbus a hard time, but he was a smart guy. There was also something called the sextant, which allowed you, again, to look like at the stars and the sun and to help you do the distance as well. And then ship design also changed. Remember that the rudder, if we remember that the rudder was invented by the Chinese. So the sails, so it's something called a caravel. This is a triangular sails, and this is really going to make a difference for explorers as well. Now, the three big motivators are God, glory, and gold. You can say them in any order. So remember when I was talking about me moving, so we moved obviously for money, for finances, and then glory for your country, and then they wanted to spread Christianity as well. So if we look at these, we see the demand for gold and spices, obviously, and then the supporting Christianity. And then also it's this whole, we want to make our country the richest and most powerful. So remember that we'd had the Silk Road and we had these maritime routes, but now that the Byzantine Empire is controlling this area here, it's going to be very difficult to get here. So what if we go around Africa? Okay, that's a thought. So it's actually one of the first things that happens. So a guy by the name of Prince Henry, he was a prince in Portugal. Now, because he's a prince, he wasn't allowed to do a lot of adventuring that might have cost him his life. So he founded a school and he gave a lot of money for explorers. And so that's what Prince Henry is famous for. Now, there are several explorers that we have to know, and this is one of them, okay? So Prince Henry, again, he's not personally an explorer, but he is famous because he's the one who really starts this school that's really going to help motivate all of these great sailors and everything. So his school of navigation that he opens, he's going to encourage people to go around Africa and to get to India. And the Portuguese, today we don't think of them as like this amazing country, but at this time period, they were a huge empire. So Prince Henry is our first one to think about. And then we're also going to think about Vasco da Gama. So I'm going to tell you my little tricks that I have to help you remember these explorers, because we're going to have to know a couple for our quiz at the end of the week. So Vasco da Gama went down around the tip of Africa to India. And so we'd had one guy already go down to the tip of Africa. Theater is practicing outside, hence all the crazy music right now, so I apologize. So they went down around the tip of Africa and got there, and then he actually went from Africa all the way over to India. So you can see here, so in we had the first one in 1948. This was Bartholomew Diaz, who went down here. And then eventually the blue line here is going to follow. This is Vasco da Gama, who makes it all the way to India. Okay. And they're like, all right, now, Christopher Columbus is Italian, and he sees this happening. He's like, dude, I got an idea. What if, instead of going around the tip of Africa, I get in my boat and we go west? And you know what happens when we go west? We leave here, and then we go around, and then bang, I'm here in China. Dude, how smart, right? All right, here's what I want you to think. People knew the world was round. Here's where Christopher Columbus made a mistake. He thought the world was really like the size of a softball. In essence, it was the size of a basketball. So he thought if he went and sailed west, that he would get China. Well, what he ends up landing, of course, is that he ends up in North America. Okay. So when he lands in the Caribbean, he never set foot on present day United States. He lands in the Caribbean and he believes that he has landed in India. He thinks he's gone and he's landed in this area here. That's why he calls the people Indians. So Christopher Columbus had a great idea. He thought sailing west was going to be a shorter way than going around Africa. But again, his fault was that everyone kind of didn't understand exactly how big the world was. Now, Columbus, remember, is Italian. So he's like, all right, come on, support me. Italy's like, we're not supporting this idea, and we don't have the money. So then he goes to Portugal. You guys are the big explorer people. Pay me. I'll go. I just need somebody to fund my voyage. Yeah, no, we got a lot of other projects, and I don't know about this. Like, the Africa thing is working for us. We don't really need to go west. So he goes to Queen Isabella. Now, everybody else says Ferdinand and Isabella. But I'm going to tell you what, the smart one out of these two is Isabella. Isabella has already proved herself. She has gone into battle while she was pregnant. This woman is a kick butt. Think about like Daenerys of Targaryen. Like, she is Queen of Dragons, right? Like, she is a BA. She has married Ferdinand in order to strengthen and build up her kingdom. She is wearing the pants in that family, let me tell you. So Columbus comes to her and she listens to his story. Isabella is smart and she realizes, this could be very profitable. So she funds his voyage. He set sail with 3 ships that we know, the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. In 1492, Columbus sails the Ocean Blue. Yes, most of his people who went with him were prisoners, and that's because they were cheap labor. He does get to the New World, and while he himself does not realize it is a new world, other people realize he's gone somewhere new, and they realize that there's new continents. America is eventually named after the Italian explorer Amerigo Vespucci, who never actually sets foot in America, but he draws a map, and he's the first person to say, that Columbus guy, he's a great guy, but you know what? He didn't go to Asia. He went somewhere new. And Amerigo Vespucci mapped it out, and that's why America is named after him. Columbus does take eventually 4 voyages and discovers, a new way for folks, and they're going to end up to be huge exploration. After Columbus, then will come Cortez. Cortez is a Spanish conquistador, and he will conquer the Aztecs. And so Cortez, that Z, Aztecs, okay, he conquered the Aztecs. And he's going to come into Mexico where the Aztecs are, and he is riding this horse. They have never seen horses. Horses are not native to the United States, to America, to North or South America. He has got guns. They don't have guns. And they're like, whoa. So in Aztec religion, there was a story, a prophecy about a white god who would come. So now comes this man that's paler than them on a horse they think is a god. Then he tricks them. He sits down with Montezuma, tricks them, eventually kills their leader, and they have less men, but the Spanish are more powerful because of their guns. And they're also going to bring something that's going to decimate the Native American population. We're going to talk about next class, which is disease. So the other Spanish conquistador we have to remember is Pizarro. So I always like to say that Pizarro had pizza with the Incas. So Pizarro is going to leave from Spain, and he is going to come here. So, like, remember, Tenochtitlan is the Aztec capital. This is where Cortez went. We're going to see that Pizarro is going to come down here, and he's going to come to the Inca Empire. Now, he actually kidnaps their leader, Adatawatlaha, I believe is how you say his name. And they kidnap him and they demand a ransom for him. If you don't pay us the ransom, we're going to kill your king. And the Incas have lots of gold. And so they make a deal and they bring the gold. What does Pizarro do? Like the conquistador he was, he kills the Incan king anyway. And there's a big battle. And who wins? The guys with the guns. The Spanish win again. So we're going to see the Aztecs and the Inca empires decimated by the Spanish. And the Spanish are going to set up this massive kind of colonies, like from here, California up, and come all the way down. They're going to take all the Caribbean. The first permanent settlement in the Americas is St. Augustine in Florida by the Spanish. The first American English settlement is Jamestown. That's not till 1607. Like, these guys or the Spanish are way ahead. It's going to be a little later that the English are going to get involved. Magellan. Now, he's actually Portuguese. He set sail from Spain. He set sails with 5 ships. So he's like, all right, look, we've been doing this. We got land here. There's got to be more. So he actually comes and sets sail, and he decides he's going to go around the tip of South America. And he actually is the first to circumnavigate the world. Circumnavigate means to go around. Now, Magellan didn't actually make it back, so it's his crew that really, truly circumnavigates the globe. He leaves with 5 ships. It's only one that makes it back. They do get around the southern tip of Africa into the Pacific Ocean. And they get to the Philippines and they have a little bit of trouble. They decide to make a little pit stop, and the people don't like Magellan so much, and he gets killed. And the others race back to their ship and they make it back. Okay, so he's the first to go all the way around. Now we're going to see there's going to be the first Englishman. Here's the difference what he does. So that would be Sir Francis Drake, and he goes all the way. He follows closer up here. It comes up to North America, actually, but he makes it around as well. So here's Drake. You can see, look how much further up he goes. And so he's the first Englishman and the second to circumnavigate. And Drake's even more awesome because Drake actually makes it back. Now, I personally love Sir Francis Drake. He had a little thing with Miss Queen Elizabeth, who we know, the Virgin Queen. And so he was the pirate. He was actually a privateer, like a pirate before he started doing exploring. But one of the things I really love about him is he actually is the reason that the Spanish Armada was defeated. So he was called the Dragon. The Spanish hated him. And there's actually like this poem in a story in the in English history that if England is ever in trouble, that all they have to do is beat the drum and the dragon will come. And so Drake is very famous. He's just like this really kind of interesting character. You guys are going to do an activity where you're going to just pick 2 explorers to kind of find out more about, and it has to be one of the people that I've talked about today. Drake is a really great one. He would be a fun one to do. So let's talk about somebody from a different country. How about Jacques Cartier? So Jacques Cartier is French, and you just think about it like that. His little snotty name, a little Cartier, he's French, and he's going to go to Quebec, all right? So they speak French in Quebec, and he is going to come here. So you can see here, Cartier will do a lot of exploring. Later on, there'll be Marquis, Champlain, Henry Hudson will come. There'll be some other people, but he's the one who claims Canada for France. So here's a great little map that shows you all the different voyages of all the different people. So you can kind of pause and look at some of the different ones. We are not talking, obviously, about all of them. So the ones that we really have to keep straight are Pizarro, who conquered the Incas. We need to remember Cortez, who conquered the Aztecs. We need to remember Prince Henry, who started a school for navigation. We need to remember Magellan, who was the first to circumnavigate. Don't forget Vasco da Gama, who was the first to go down around the tip of India. And then we have Christopher Columbus, of course. Now, Christopher Columbus, what makes him so significant is his big mouth. Now, remember I told you he's not the first to come to the Americas, but he's the only one to tell other people. The Vikings don't count because they keep it a secret. Columbus is so significant because he starts this massive exploration. So as much as Columbus annoys me for having some little geography issues, he had a great idea to go west. Nobody had done that before who had talked about it. So the Vikings did go first, but they don't tell anybody. So Christopher Columbus is really famous for having a big mouth and starting exploration. Now, whether or not exploration is good or bad, that's something we can discuss. And if you think about current events, like, do you remember that just this summer, there were protesters who tore down Christopher Columbus's statue in Richmond? And why did that? Why did they do that? Well, we're going to talk about that next class, because there's some people who feel that Christopher Columbus, that what he did was more bad than it was good. That's going to be a question that you're going to get to decide, and we'll talk about that more next class. All right, so you're going to get to read a little bit more about explorers, and that's going to be your activity for today. And I will see you next class to talk about the effects and the impacts of exploration.